Chosen one. Have you ever woken up at 3:17 a.m. with your heart pounding, knowing something monumental was about to shift in your life, but you couldn't name it? Have you been carrying a weight in your chest for weeks now, a divine restlessness that whispers, prepare, 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 but prepare for what? What if I told you that the very fact you're hearing my voice right now wasn't an accident, but an appointment? If you are hearing this right now, you weren't supposed to, unless heaven wanted you to. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Time isn't ticking anymore, it's trembling. The spiritual atmosphere around the 7th of August is unlike anything we've witnessed in decades. While the world sleeps, something ancient is stirring. Something that will separate the called from the curious, the chosen from the comfortable. You've always known you were different, haven't you? You've always felt like a stranger in your own life, carrying dreams too big for this world, sensing things others couldn't see. That wasn't your imagination, that was your spirit recognizing its true frequency. But here's what's shaking me to my core. What if I told you the door to your next season doesn't open in a crowd, it opens in complete silence, and only to those who are willing to be alone with God on the 7th of August. The enemy knows what's coming. That's why he's been attacking your peace, your relationships, your finances with such intensity lately. Hell recognizes when heaven is about to move, and chosen one, heaven is about to move through you. But not everyone is meant to enter that day the same way they leave it. Some will experience the 7th of August as just another Wednesday. But for those who have been marked, for those whose spirits are trembling right now, as these words penetrate your soul, this day will be your divine reset. Before we go deeper into this sacred mystery, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let heaven know you're listening. If something inside you is waking up right now, if your spirit is recognizing the sound of its own name being called from eternity, write 777 inch the comments right now. Heaven needs a witness. Don't scroll. Don't hesitate. Because what I'm about to reveal about the 7th of August will either transform your life forever, or you'll walk away unchanged, wondering what could have been. The veil is thinning. The door is opening, but only for those who dare to be alone with the Almighty when He whispers their destiny. Are you ready to discover why you must stay home alone on the 7th of August? Why have you survived every storm that should have destroyed you? Why are you still breathing when others who seemed stronger have already gone home to glory? Why does your heart still beat with purpose when logic says you should have given up years ago? Because, dear one, your survival wasn't an accident. It was an appointment. Remember that season where everything fell apart when the diagnosis came back, when the marriage crumbled, when the children stopped calling, when the bank account hit zero and you wondered if God had forgotten your address. Remember lying in that hospital bed, or sitting in that empty house, or staring at those unpaid bills, and something inside you whispered, "This isn't how my story ends." That wasn't your voice. That was heaven's voice speaking through your spirit, declaring over your life, "You will not die but live and proclaim what the Lord has done." You see, chosen one, there's something the enemy never wanted you to discover about your darkest seasons. They weren't punishment, they were preparation. Every tear you cried in secret was watering seeds of purpose. Every night you couldn't sleep was actually you keeping vigil for a breakthrough that was already on its way. Think about Joseph, rotting in that Egyptian prison for crimes he didn't commit. 13 years of injustice, 13 years of wondering if God's promises were just dreams of a foolish boy. But Genesis 41-14 tells us that when Pharaoh finally called for him, they quickly brought him from the dungeon. Quickly. After 13 years of waiting, the promotion happened in a moment. Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister in a single afternoon. Not despite his prison years, but because of them. The dungeon taught him to depend on God alone. The isolation prepared him to rule a nation without losing his soul. The betrayal by his brothers taught him to forgive on a scale that would save entire nations from starvation. Could it be that your waiting wasn't punishment, but preservation? Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness tending sheep when he was destined to lead millions. 40 years. Can you imagine? Here's a man with a palace education, trained for leadership, and God sends him to the backside of nowhere to watch animals. But when the burning bush finally blazed, Moses had something no palace could have given him: humility, patience, and the knowledge that God provides in impossible places. Exodus 3:10 records the moment everything changed. So now, go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people the Israelites out of Egypt. After 4 decades of silence, God spoke one sentence that would reshape history. The wilderness wasn't wasted time. It was the classroom where Moses learned to hear God's voice above the noise of the world. And what about Anna the prophetess? Luke 2:37 tells us she was 84 years old, never left the temple but worshipped night and day, fasting and praying. 84. While others her age were settling into comfortable retirement, Anna was positioned for the greatest moment in human history. When Mary and Joseph brought baby Jesus to the temple, Anna was there. Not by accident, but by appointment. She had been alone with God for so long that she recognized him the moment he walked through the door. There's a reason you're still alive when others didn't make it to 2025. There's a reason you've survived what should have killed you, outlasted what should have destroyed you, and outlived what should have buried you. You are Anna, in this generation, positioned by Providence for a divine encounter that will redefine your legacy. Have you ever noticed that your most profound encounters with God happened not in crowded sanctuaries, but in empty rooms? Not during Sunday services, but during sleepless nights? Not when everyone was watching, but when you thought no one cared? That's because the Almighty speaks in whispers, not shouts. He reveals himself in stillness, not in noise. 1 Kings 19:12 describes it perfectly. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. The 7th of August is not a date on your calendar. It's a spiritual portal. And solitude is the key that unlocks it. Right now, something is shifting in the heavenly realm. The same God who visited Joseph in prison, who called Moses from the burning bush, who revealed Jesus to Anna in the temple, is preparing to meet with you. But this encounter won't happen in a crowd. It won't happen in the hustle and bustle of everyday life. It will happen when you're alone with him, when every distraction is silenced, when your heart can finally hear what he's been trying to tell you for years. This is why the enemy has been working overtime to keep you busy, distracted, surrounded by noise. He knows that if you ever get truly alone with God, if you ever hear what heaven has been whispering over your life, everything changes. Your identity shifts. Your purpose clarifies. Your destiny activates. The isolation you've feared is actually the invitation you've been waiting for. Have you ever felt God closer in the silence than in any sermon? Have you ever experienced his presence more powerfully in an empty room than in a packed church? Share that moment in the comments. Let someone else find strength in your survival, hope in your perseverance, faith in your testimony. Because, dear one, what happened to you in those quiet places wasn't just personal, it was prophetic. You were being prepared for the 7th of August, when the veil between heaven and earth grows thin, when divine appointments are kept, when the chosen ones who have learned to be alone with God finally understand why they've been preserved for such a time as this. But this portal won't stay open forever, and not everyone will recognize it when it appears. The question that will determine your destiny is simply this: when God whispers your name on the 7th of August, will you be still enough to hear it? Dear chosen one, I need you to stop right now and ask yourself a question that might cut deeper than you're prepared for. Why does being alone terrify you so much? Why, when the house goes quiet and the phone stops ringing, does panic creep into your chest like smoke under a door? You've been programmed to believe that solitude is punishment, that being alone means being forgotten, abandoned, cast aside like yesterday's newspaper. But what if I told you that every moment you felt isolated, every season you've walked through valleys by yourself, every night you've cried alone in your bedroom, what if all of that wasn't God's neglect, but God's design? Being alone is not isolation, it's incubation. Listen to me carefully, beloved. Diamonds are not made in crowds. They're pressed in silence, crushed under pressure that no human eye can witness, transformed in the darkness miles beneath the Earth's surface. For millions of years, carbon waits in solitude, until that final moment when it emerges as something so precious, so rare, that kings fight wars to possess it. You think your loneliness has been your curse. It's been your chrysalis. Think about this, and I want you to really think about it. When was the last time God spoke to someone in a crowd? When did the Almighty ever whisper destiny over someone standing in a packed stadium? Never. Because divine downloads require divine silence. Heaven's frequency can't compete with human chatter. Jesus didn't start his ministry in a crowd. He started it alone in the wilderness. 40 days and 40 nights of complete isolation, wrestling with his identity, his purpose, his calling. The Son of God, who could have summoned legions of angels for company, chose solitude. Why? Because what he was about to carry couldn't be contaminated by the opinions, doubts, and distractions of others. What if you're the 7th of August is your wilderness? Moses received the 10 Commandments on a mountain alone. Elijah heard the still small voice in a cave alone. David wrote the Psalms that have comforted millions while hiding in caves, running for his life alone. Mary received the greatest announcement in human history, alone in her room. Paul received his revelation on the road to Damascus alone. Do you see the pattern, chosen one? Do you understand what heaven has been trying to tell you through every season of solitude you've endured? You weren't abandoned. You were appointed. But here's what breaks my heart, and I'm going to be brutally honest with you, because your time is too precious for sugar-coated lies. You've been so afraid of being alone that you've filled your life with noise, distractions, and people who drain your spirit just so you wouldn't have to face the silence. You've chosen the chatter of emptiness over the whisper of eternity. And the enemy loves it. Satan doesn't mind if you pray in crowds, read your Bible in groups, or worship with thousands. But the moment you're alone with God, truly alone, with no buffer, no audience, no safety net, that's when he panics. Because that's when you hear your real name. That's when you remember who you really are. The Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus took his disciples as far as they could go. Then he said the words that will echo through eternity, "Stay here and watch." And he went a little farther alone. In his most crucial hour, when the weight of humanity's sin was about to crush him, when he needed to make the decision that would determine the fate of every soul ever born, he went alone. Not because he was forsaken, but because some conversations with the Father can only happen in perfect solitude. Your isolation hasn't been punishment, beloved. It's been preparation. Every time you felt forgotten by friends, overlooked by family, invisible to the world, God was separating you, sanctifying you, setting you apart for something so sacred that it couldn't be shared with the crowd. The cave of David. When King Saul was hunting him like a wild animal, David didn't run to the palace. He ran to the cave. And it was there, in the darkness, in the dampness, in the complete isolation from everything he thought his life should be, that David wrote, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Those words weren't born in comfort. They were birthed in solitude. They came from a man who learned that when you have nothing but God, you have everything you need. But you've been lied to. You've been told that if you're truly blessed, you'll be surrounded by people, invited to every gathering, your phone constantly buzzing with activity. That's not blessing, that's distraction. That's the enemy keeping you so busy with the shallow that you never dive deep enough to discover the sacred. The enemy has tried to convince you you're forgotten. But you were hidden because what you carry can't be exposed prematurely. Think about a seed. Before it becomes a mighty oak that shelters generations, it must be buried, alone, in darkness, seemingly dead to the world above. But beneath the surface, in that sacred solitude, life is stirring, roots are growing, strength is building, and when it finally breaks through the soil, it doesn't emerge as the same seed that was planted. It emerges as something magnificent, something that will outlast every storm. That's you, chosen one. That's your story. Every season of solitude has been developing your root system. Every moment of loneliness has been strengthening your foundation. Every time you felt cut off from the world, you were actually being connected to something eternal. The 7th of August isn't just another day you'll spend alone. It's the day your isolation transforms into revelation. It's the day your solitude becomes your sanctuary. It's the day you stop running from the quiet and start embracing the sacred silence where God does his deepest work. But this requires something from you that might terrify you more than staying alone. It requires you to stop trying to escape the very thing God has been using to shape you into who he needs you to become. The question that will determine everything about your next season is this: will you finally embrace the divine stillness, or will you keep running from the very place where your miracle is waiting to be born? You know what's been driving you crazy lately? That feeling that you're seeing things before they happen, that knowing in your gut when someone's about to call, that sick feeling in your stomach 3 days before bad news hits your family. You've been calling it intuition, but I'm here to tell you something that's going to blow your mind wide open. You're not intuitive, you're prophetic. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What you've been dismissing as coincidence, what you've been apologizing for as being too sensitive, what family members have mocked you for your entire life, that's not a curse. That's your calling card from heaven itself. You see, the enemy has spent decades convincing you that your gift is a burden. Every time you felt something before it happened, every time you sensed danger in a room full of smiling faces, every time you knew someone was lying before they opened their mouth, hell whispered the same lie. You're crazy. You're paranoid. You're too much. But what if I told you that the very thing they tried to shame you for is the exact thing God is about to activate on the 7th of August? The Bible is crystal clear about this. Joel 2:28 declares, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions, your old men shall dream dreams. That's you, beloved. That's exactly you. But here's where it gets dangerous for the kingdom of darkness. God doesn't just give his chosen ones one gift. He marks them with 3 distinct signs that make them absolutely lethal to hell's agenda. First mark, the healing frequency. You walk into a room and somehow tension dissolves. People feel safer around you without knowing why. Animals are drawn to you. Children trust you instantly. That's not charm. That's heaven's frequency flowing through your very presence. Second mark, the visionary mind. You dream things before they happen. You get ideas that seem to come from nowhere but change everything. You see solutions when everyone else sees problems. That's not creativity, that's divine download. Third mark, magnetic presence. People either love you immediately or hate you for no reason. You can't hide in crowds because something about you draws attention. You've been told your whole life you're too intense or too much. That's not personality, that's anointing. Now here's what's going to shake you to your core. If you carry even one of these marks, the 7th of August isn't just another day for you. It's your activation date. But the enemy knows this. That's why your spiritual sight has been under attack lately. Have you noticed your dreams getting darker? Your discernment feeling clouded, your peace being shattered by anxiety you can't explain? That's not random, that's warfare against your gift. The devil understands something about the 7th of August that most believers don't. It's not just another day on the calendar, it's a spiritual alignment that happens once every 7 years. The veil between heaven and earth becomes paper thin, and those who are marked, those who carry the sight, will receive downloads of clarity so powerful it will change the trajectory of their lives forever. But here's the catch that nobody talks about. This divine clarity doesn't come to those surrounded by noise. It doesn't visit the busy. It doesn't download to the distracted. It only comes to those who are willing to turn down the world's volume and turn up heaven's frequency. You're not overreacting when you feel overwhelmed by crowds. You're not being antisocial when you need silence. You're not being difficult when you can't handle the chaos anymore. You're seeing ahead. Your spirit is picking up frequencies that your mind hasn't learned to interpret yet. On the 7th of August, that interpretation becomes crystal clear, but only if you create the space for it. Think about Elijah. 1 Kings 19:11-12 tells us that God wasn't in the earthquake, wasn't in the fire, wasn't in the wind. God was in the still, small voice. But Elijah had to get away from everything to hear it. He had to go to the cave. He had to be alone. Your living room on the 7th of August is your cave. Your silence is your sanctuary. Your solitude is your secret weapon. But I need to tell you something that's going to challenge everything you think you know about spiritual gifts. The sight that God is about to release isn't just for you, it's through you. You're not just receiving clarity, you're becoming a conduit of clarity for others. The grandmother who's been praying for her prodigal grandson for 20 years, she needs your intercession. The neighbor who's battling depression behind closed doors, they need your spiritual covering. The pastor who's lost his way, he needs your prophetic insight. But you can't give what you haven't received. You can't pour from an empty well. You can't activate what hasn't been installed. Right now, I need you to stop whatever you're doing. I need you to speak these words out loud, not in your head, out loud. Because faith comes by hearing, and your own ears need to hear your voice declaring this truth. I receive divine clarity. I claim my sight. I accept my anointing. Say it again, louder this time. Let heaven hear you claiming what's already yours. You're not imagining it, chosen one. You're awakening to it. That stirring in your chest right now isn't anxiety, it's anticipation. That electricity in the air isn't static, it's the supernatural charging the atmosphere around your life. But here's the question that will determine whether the 7th of August transforms you or passes you by. Will you trust what you're sensing, or will you let doubt rob you of the greatest spiritual upgrade of your lifetime? Dear chosen one, what I'm about to reveal will either set you free or leave you bound to the same cycles that have held your generation captive for decades. The 7th of August isn't just another Wednesday on your calendar. It's the day heaven has marked for a spiritual reckoning that will separate those who hear God's voice from those who merely hear noise. Listen to me carefully. On the 7th of August, the moon shifts into Leo at precisely 11:47 p.m. Eastern Time. But this isn't astrology, beloved. This is divine astronomy. When God created the heavens, He set them as signs and seasons, and what's happening in the celestial realm that night will trigger something unprecedented in the spiritual dimension. Old timelines are collapsing. The very fabric of spiritual reality is being rewoven, and those who position themselves correctly will find themselves on the right side of eternity's greatest shift. But those who miss this moment, they'll spend the next 7 years wondering why breakthrough keeps slipping through their fingers like sand. You've felt it building, haven't you? That restlessness in your chest, that sense that something monumental is approaching. Your spirit has been preparing you for weeks, maybe months. The sleepless nights, the unexplained anxiety, the dreams you can't quite remember, but leave you with an ache in your soul. All of it has been heaven's alarm system warning you that the 7th of August is coming. But here's what's breaking my heart tonight. Most of God's people will miss it completely. They'll spend that sacred day shopping at Walmart, scrolling through Facebook, drowning in the noise of a world that's designed to keep them spiritually deaf. They'll wake up on the 8th of August exactly the same as they were on the 6th of August, never knowing they walked past the greatest opportunity of their lifetime. That day is not a calendar event, it's a spiritual test. a frequency shift that will determine who rises and who remains stuck in the same defeating patterns. Think about Moses at the burning bush. Do you think he would have heard God's voice if he'd been surrounded by the chaos of Egypt? Never. He had to be alone in the wilderness, tending sheep in complete solitude, before the Almighty could speak to him the words that would change history. The same God who spoke to Moses in isolation is preparing to speak to you on the 7th of August. But only if you're willing to create the sacred space he requires. Here's the truth they don't want you to know. God's greatest revelations never come in crowds. They come in closets. They come in the secret place. They come when you're alone with him and the distractions of this world finally fall silent. If you're surrounded by noise that day, if you're at the mall, if you're hosting dinner, if you're caught up in social media or phone calls or television, you'll miss the whisper. And beloved, this isn't a whisper he'll repeat next month or next year. This is a kairos moment, a divine appointment that exists in a window so narrow that if you blink, it's gone forever. Remember the Passover in Egypt. Exodus 12 tells us that when the angel of death passed through the land, it was those who were in the house that were covered, not those who were out socializing, not those who were conducting business as usual. Those who stayed inside, behind closed doors, covered by the blood, protected in their homes, while judgment passed over them. This is your covering, chosen one. Stay home on the 7th of August. Be still. Listen. Because what God wants to download into your spirit that day requires complete silence, complete focus, complete surrender to his presence. But let me shock you with something that might save your spiritual life. God is not speaking through earthquakes anymore. He's not shouting from mountaintops. 1 Kings 19 reveals that when Elijah was desperate to hear from heaven, God wasn't in the wind, he wasn't in the earthquake, he wasn't in the fire. He was in the still, small voice, the whisper that could only be heard in absolute stillness. Will you be too distracted to hear him? Will you be too busy, too social, too normal to position yourself for the supernatural? Because I'm telling you right now, the enemy knows what's coming on the 7th of August. That's why he's been working overtime to fill your calendar, to create drama in your relationships, to make you feel guilty about taking time alone. Hell is terrified of what happens when God's chosen ones get quiet enough to hear their assignments. When they stop running from appointment to appointment and start running to the secret place. When they choose divine encounters over human entertainment. You want to know why your prayers have felt like they're bouncing off the ceiling lately? Because God has been preparing something so powerful, so life-altering, that he had to wait for the perfect spiritual alignment to release it. The 7th of August is that alignment. But it requires your participation. It requires your sacrifice of normalcy. Think about Daniel. 3 times a day, he shut out the world and opened his windows toward Jerusalem. In a foreign land, surrounded by pressure to conform, he made the radical choice to be alone with God. And what happened? Heaven broke open. Visions flooded his mind. Prophecies flowed from his lips. Angels visited his chamber. That same visitation is available to you on the 7th of August. But only if you're willing to shut out the world and open your windows toward heaven. The question that will determine your destiny is this. Are you willing to disappoint people to receive your divine appointment? Because that's what this comes down to, beloved. Your family might not understand. Your friends might think you're being antisocial. But since when has God's will ever made sense to the natural mind? What's about to unfold on the 7th of August will either launch you into the greatest season of your life or leave you wondering what could have been. The choice and the consequences are entirely yours. Dear one, stop right where you are. Put your hand on your chest and feel your heartbeat. That rhythm you're feeling right now, it's been beating for 70, 80, maybe 90 years. Through wars you survived. Through losses that should have destroyed you. Through nights when you prayed until your voice gave out, wondering if anyone up there was even listening. You've survived too much for this to be random. Look at your hands right now. Really look at them. Those aren't just wrinkles you see, those are battle scars. Every line tells a story of endurance. Every mark speaks of a moment when you could have given up, but didn't. When your spouse passed away, and the silence in your house became deafening. When the doctors gave you news that should have broken you. When your own children turned their backs on you, but you're still here. Why do you think that is? In Psalm 139:16, David wrote, "All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." Before you took your first breath, before your mother knew she was carrying you, God had already marked this very moment. This conversation, this divine appointment between your spirit and His truth. Every tear you've cried, heaven recorded them all. Psalm 56:8 promises, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle." Think about that. The Creator of the universe has been collecting your tears like precious pearls. The night you wept over your prodigal child. The morning you buried your dreams along with your spouse. The countless times you've felt invisible in a world that worships youth and discards wisdom. God saved every single tear. But here's what's going to shake you to your core. Those weren't tears of defeat. Those were tears of preparation. Every heartbreak was heaven's way of expanding your capacity to carry glory. Every loss was God making room for something greater. Every lonely night was the Almighty preparing you for a conversation that could only happen in solitude. You thought you were being forgotten. You were being refined. Listen to me carefully, precious soul. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not past your prime. You are right on time for the greatest assignment of your entire existence. While others your age are content to fade quietly into the background, God is positioning you for your finest hour. Moses was 80 when he split the Red Sea. Sarah was 90 when she birthed nations. Caleb was 85 when he conquered mountains. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. You've earned the right to carry authority because you've proven you won't quit when the going gets tough. But why the 7th of August? Why this specific day? Because God operates in appointed times, what the Bible calls kairos moments. These aren't ordinary dates on a calendar. These are divine intersections where heaven touches earth, where the impossible becomes inevitable, where decades of preparation culminate in one supernatural moment. Ecclesiastes 3:1 declares, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Your season of survival is over. Your season of significance is beginning. And it starts in the silence of the 7th of August. You see, dear one, the world has been telling you that your value decreases with age, that your voice doesn't matter anymore, that your best days are behind you. But that's not God's voice, that's the enemy's lie, designed to keep you from stepping into the very calling you've been prepared for your entire life. The devil knows something about you that you're just now beginning to remember. He knows that a believer who has walked through fire and still praises God is the most dangerous weapon in heaven's arsenal. He knows that your prayers carry more weight now because they're seasoned with experience. He knows that your faith is unshakable because it's been tested by decades of storms. That's why he's been working overtime to convince you that you're finished. Because if you ever realize that you're just getting started, his kingdom is in trouble. But the 7th of August changes everything. This isn't just your new beginning, it's your spiritual resurrection. Like Lazarus emerging from the tomb, you're about to walk out of every limitation, every lie, every label that tried to define you. The same power that raised Christ from the dead is about to raise you from the grave of society's expectations. Romans 8:11 promises, "And if the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead is living in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies because of his spirit who lives in you." Your mortal body. Right now, at your age, with your history, resurrection power is flowing through your veins this very moment. Can you feel it? That stirring in your chest. That's not your heart skipping a beat, that's your destiny awakening after decades of dormancy. That restlessness you've been carrying, that's not anxiety, that's anticipation. Your spirit knows what your mind is just beginning to understand. You weren't preserved through all those years of struggle just to exist. You were preserved to emerge, to arise, to become everything you were created to be when the world thought you were done. The 7th of August is your appointed time, your kairos moment, your spiritual resurrection day. If this word has reached you in tears, if something deep in your soul is recognizing the sound of its own name being called, write it in the comments right now. I receive my resurrection. The 7th of August is mine. Don't just think it, declare it. Let heaven and earth witness your agreement with destiny, because what's about to happen on that day will require you to believe something that seems impossible, that your greatest chapter is still unwritten. Dear chosen one, I need you to stop everything you're doing right now and listen to what I'm about to tell you. Because what happened to you in the last 72 hours wasn't random. The restlessness keeping you awake at 3 a.m., the sudden emotional waves hitting you without warning, the dreams you can't quite remember but can't shake, none of it was coincidence. Heaven has been preparing you for the 7th of August your entire life. Every trial, every season of isolation, every moment you felt forgotten by the world, it was all training for this single day when God will speak to you in a way He's never spoken before. But here's what's breaking my heart right now. Most of God's people will miss it completely. They'll wake up on the 7th of August and treat it like any other Wednesday. They'll rush to appointments, scroll through social media, fill their ears with noise and their schedules with distractions. And while they're busy being busy, the greatest spiritual download of their lifetime will pass them by like wind through an empty house. You see, beloved, God doesn't shout over chaos. He whispers in silence. And on the 7th of August, His whisper will carry instructions that will reshape the next decade of your life, but only if you're positioned to hear it. Remember Anna the prophetess? Luke 2:36 tells us she never left the temple but worshipped night and day, fasting and praying. For 84 years this woman stayed in one place, waiting, listening, praying. The world probably thought she was wasting her life. Religious leaders might have dismissed her as irrelevant. But when baby Jesus was brought to the temple, who recognized the Messiah? Not the priests, not the scholars. Anna, the woman who had learned to hear God's voice in the silence. She alone saw what others missed, because she alone had positioned herself to receive divine revelation. That's you on the 7th of August, chosen one. While the world rushes past the sacred, you'll be standing at the center of time itself, receiving downloads that will leave you forever changed. But this requires something from you that will challenge everything you think you know about faith. It requires complete consecration, complete separation, complete surrender to the process God is about to take you through. On the 7th of August, you must not leave your home. I don't care what meeting you had planned. I don't care what obligation is calling your name. I don't care if people think you've lost your mind. When heaven calls for consecration, everything else becomes secondary. Turn off your phone. Disconnect from the digital noise that has been drowning out God's voice for months. Social media, text messages, news alerts, all of it is spiritual static designed to keep you from hearing what heaven is trying to download into your spirit. Write down everything you hear. Keep a journal beside you, because God is going to speak to you in ways that will astonish you. Dreams from the night before will suddenly make sense. Random thoughts will connect like puzzle pieces. Scripture verses will light up in your mind with fresh revelation. Write it all down, because what you receive on the 7th of August will become the roadmap for your next season. Pray in silence, not the kind of prayer where you fill every moment with words, but the kind where you sit in God's presence and let Him fill the emptiness. Sometimes the most powerful prayers are the ones where you say nothing and let the Holy Spirit intercede through groans too deep for words. Listen for whispers. Your neighbors will be mowing their lawns. Traffic will hum in the distance. Life will continue its normal rhythm. But underneath all of that, there will be another sound, the voice of the Almighty, speaking directly to your spirit. It won't be loud. It won't be dramatic. It will be intimate, personal, and so clear that you'll wonder how you ever missed it before. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. While everyone else is distracted by the noise of ordinary life, you'll be receiving extraordinary instructions. While they're consuming content, you'll be receiving calling. While they're scrolling through their problems, you'll be downloading solutions that haven't been available until now. The world will go on, rushing to work, rushing through conversations, rushing toward destinations that don't really matter. But you, beloved, you will be standing still at the center of time, watching eternity intersect with your earthly circumstances in ways that will leave you speechless. This isn't about becoming religious. This isn't about following some mystical formula. This is about positioning yourself to receive what God has been trying to give you for years, but couldn't because you've been too busy to listen. Moses received the 10 Commandments on a mountain, alone with God. Elijah heard the still small voice in a cave, separated from the crowds. John received the revelation on an island, isolated from the world's distractions. Do you see the pattern? God's greatest revelations come to those who are willing to separate themselves from everything else. You're not watching history on the 7th of August, chosen one. You're walking into it. You're not observing God's movement from the sidelines. You're being positioned to participate in something that will ripple through generations. But here's the question that will determine your destiny. Will you have the courage to consecrate yourself completely, or will you let fear of missing out on earthly things cause you to miss out on heavenly breakthrough? Because what's waiting for you in the silence of the 7th of August will either transform everything about your future, or you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what could have been if you had just been brave enough to stay home and listen. The seal is about to be broken. The door is about to open, but only for those who are willing to be alone with God when He calls their name. Yesterday the heavens fell silent. You stayed home. You were faithful. But today the atmosphere feels different, doesn't it? You woke up this morning and something had shifted. The air itself carries a weight it didn't have before. Your coffee tastes different. The sunlight streaming through your window seems to hold secrets. Even your own reflection looks back at you with eyes that have seen something eternal. You didn't imagine the stillness, chosen one. While the world rushed through another ordinary Wednesday, you stood at the center of a spiritual turning point. You were positioned exactly where heaven needed you to be. But what happens after the silence determines everything. Because now comes the separation. Listen to me carefully. In Malachi 3:18, God declares, "Then you will again see the distinction between the righteous and the wicked, between one who serves God and one who does not serve Him." That word again is crucial. It means there was a time when the distinction was clear, then it became blurred, but now, right now, heaven is making the lines visible again. The 7th of August wasn't just a day of solitude, it was a day of positioning. While others filled their schedules with noise and distraction, you chose the narrow path of obedience. You said yes to something you couldn't fully understand. And that obedience just activated something in the spiritual realm that cannot be undone. But here's what's going to shake you. The enemy knows exactly who was in position yesterday. He's been taking attendance. Hell has a roster, and your name is on it not as a target for destruction, but as a threat to His kingdom. Because when God's chosen ones align with His timing, when they move in perfect obedience to His whisper, the forces of darkness tremble. You see, dear soul, yesterday you didn't just stay home, you stepped into what I call the sacred pause, that moment when heaven holds its breath before releasing divine strategy. Moses experienced this at the burning bush. Elijah felt it in the cave. Mary knew it when the angel appeared. They all had to be alone, separated from the crowd, positioned in perfect solitude when God spoke their destiny. And now you're asking, what's next? What was that silence for? The answer will either thrill you or terrify you, depending on how ready you are for what's coming. Right now, across America, there's an invisible sorting happening. People are being divided into two camps: those who heard the call and obeyed, and those who missed it entirely. The ones who stayed home yesterday are about to receive downloads, dreams, and divine encounters that will leave them forever changed. But those who filled the 7th of August with business as usual, they'll continue walking in circles, wondering why breakthrough always seems just out of reach. Jeremiah 33:3 promises, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and I will tell you great and mighty things which you do not know." But notice the revelation comes to those who call, who seek, who position themselves to hear. Yesterday, you positioned yourself. Today, the great and mighty things begin to unfold. But I need you to understand something that will determine your entire destiny. This separation isn't just spiritual, it's practical. The doors that open for you in the coming weeks won't open for everyone. The opportunities that find you won't find those who were distracted. The favor that follows you will be exclusive to those who were faithful in the small things. If you stayed home on the 7th of August, write in the comments, "I was in position." That obedience may be the very thing that shields you in the days to come. Because what I'm about to reveal next will explain why some people are about to experience the most blessed season of their lives, while others wonder why they feel more lost than ever. The 8th of August, 2025, the day the scroll was opened. Dear chosen one, something unprecedented happened yesterday while you slept. While the world went about its ordinary business, while people scrolled through their phones and complained about Monday morning traffic, heaven's most sacred archive was unsealed. A scroll that has been bound in divine silence for 2,000 years suddenly began to speak. It was sealed in silence, but now it speaks. And what it's saying will shatter everything you thought you knew about your destiny. You see, beloved, in Revelation 5:1, John witnessed something that made him weep. He saw a scroll written on the inside and on the back, sealed with 7 seals. This wasn't just any document. This was the title deed to your future, the blueprint of your calling, the manifest of souls marked for separation. And for centuries, no one, not the mightiest angel, not the wisest prophet, could break those seals. But then the Lion of Judah stepped forward. And what John describes next should make your soul tremble. He came and took the scroll from the right hand of him who sat on the throne. That scroll, precious soul, contains your name. Listen to me carefully. What is written on this heavenly scroll? Names, assignments, divine appointments that have been waiting in eternity for their appointed time. And there's one word written in bold ink across every page: separation. You are now in the 9 days of separation. Do you understand what this means? This isn't about isolation from people. This is about consecration unto purpose. This is about being set apart for something so sacred, so powerful, that heaven itself had to wait for the perfect moment to reveal it. But here's what's breaking my heart right now. Most believers will never even know this scroll was opened. They'll live their entire lives carrying the weight of an unfulfilled calling because they missed the window. They'll go to their graves wondering why they always felt different, why they never quite fit, why their spirits burned with a fire they couldn't explain. Don't let that be you. The enemy has been working overtime to keep you distracted during these critical 9 days. Have you noticed how chaotic everything has become lately? How relationships are suddenly strained? How your peace has been under attack? How sleep has become elusive? That's not coincidence, chosen one. That's warfare. Because hell knows that when you finally understand what's written on that scroll about you, their reign of deception in your life is over. This scroll does not shout. It selects, and it has selected you. But selection comes with separation. And separation, dear soul, is never comfortable. It means saying no to people who've grown accustomed to your yes. It means choosing solitude over social obligations. It means trusting God's voice above the opinions of family members who think you've lost your mind. Moses experienced this separation when God called him to Mount Sinai for 40 days. The Israelites thought he was dead. They built a golden calf and went back to their old ways because they couldn't understand that their leader was being transformed in the presence of the Almighty. When Moses came down, his face shone so brightly they couldn't look at him. That's what separation does. It makes you shine with a glory that makes others uncomfortable. Are you willing to shine, even if it makes others uncomfortable? Elijah experienced this same separation when God told him to hide by the brook Cherith. While Israel was experiencing famine, Elijah was being fed by ravens. While others were dying of thirst, Elijah drank from a brook that never ran dry. But he had to be alone. He had to be hidden. He had to trust that God's provision would come in ways that defied human logic. Jesus himself modeled this separation. Luke 5:16 tells us, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." Often. Not once in a while. Not when it was convenient. Often. Because he understood that divine assignments require divine connection, and divine connection requires separation from the noise of this world. Here's what the scroll is declaring over your life right now. Your season of blending in is over. Your days of making yourself small to make others comfortable are finished. Your time of apologizing for the fire that burns in your bones has expired. But understand this, the scroll isn't just revealing what you're called to, it's revealing what you must leave behind. Every name written on that heavenly parchment comes with a price. The price of popularity, the price of being understood, the price of fitting into boxes that were never designed to contain your spirit. In these next 8 days, you're going to feel the pull to go back to normal, the pull to reconnect with people who drain your anointing, the pull to apologize for taking up space. But every time you feel that pull, remember this moment. Remember that your name is written on a scroll that required the blood of the Lamb to unseal. The question burning in my spirit right now is this: are you going to honor what's written on that scroll, or are you going to let fear convince you it was never meant for you? Because, chosen one, this separation isn't punishment, it's promotion. And what God is preparing to release through your life in the coming months will require every ounce of the authority you're building in these days of sacred solitude. But only if you don't break, only if you don't compromise, only if you remember that the scroll has spoken your name with purpose, with power, and with divine intention. The clock is ticking on these 9 days. 8 remain. Will you waste them trying to explain yourself to people who were never meant to understand your calling? But the 7th of August is just the beginning, chosen one. What happens next will either confirm your calling or expose your compromise. Because from the 8th of August to the 16th of August, heaven is watching closely. Not with casual interest, but with the intensity of a divine surgeon preparing for the most critical operation of your spiritual life. Listen to me carefully. These aren't just 9 ordinary days on your calendar. These are 9 days of divine separation. 9 days when God himself will peel away every layer of your old identity like a sacred scroll being unrolled word by word, line by line, until the only thing left standing is pure, uncompromised truth. You think you know who you are. You're about to discover you've been living as a shadow of your true self. For decades, maybe your entire life, you've been carrying identities that were never yours. Labels from your childhood, expectations from your family, disappointments that redefined your dreams. But in these 9 days, God is going to strip away every false identity until you're standing naked before eternity, and for the first time in your life, you'll like what you see. Day 1. Discernment. The 8th of August arrives, and suddenly you'll know things you've never known before. That friend who's been draining your energy for years, you'll see them clearly. That habit you've justified, the truth will cut through your excuses like a sword. 1 Samuel 16:7 reminds us, the Lord looks at the heart. On this day, he's going to give you his eyes to see what he sees. Day 2. Distancing. You'll find yourself pulling back from people, places, and patterns that once felt normal. Don't fight it. This isn't antisocial behavior, this is divine separation. Even Jesus withdrew from the crowds to be alone with the Father. Some relationships that seemed permanent will suddenly feel suffocating. That's not coldness, that's clarity. Day 3. Disruption. Everything you thought was stable will start shaking. Your routine, your comfort zones, your carefully constructed life, all of it will feel foreign. Hebrews 12:27 declares that God shakes everything that can be shaken, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. What's being disrupted in your life isn't punishment, it's purification. Day 4. Detachment. You'll lose your grip on things you thought you couldn't live without. That desperate need for approval, gone. That fear of being alone, dissolved. That addiction to being needed by everyone, severed. Matthew 10:39 becomes your reality. Whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. What feels like loss is actually liberation. Day 5. Dreams. But this day brings something different. God begins downloading new visions, new possibilities you never dared imagine. At 70, 80, 90 years old, you'll dream dreams that make your heart race like a teenager's. Joel 2:28 promised this. Your old men will dream dreams. This isn't nostalgia, this is prophecy activating. Day 6. Death of the old. This day might be the hardest. You'll mourn who you used to be. The compromised version of yourself will die, and death is never easy, even when it leads to resurrection. Romans 6:6 tells us, our old self was crucified with Christ. On this day, you'll feel the weight of that crucifixion. But death is never the end in God's kingdom. It's always the doorway to new life. Day 7. Divine repositioning. God begins moving you not just emotionally or spiritually, but practically. New opportunities appear. Old doors slam shut. People from your past fade away while divinely appointed connections emerge. You're being repositioned on the chessboard of destiny, and every move is strategic. Day 8. Destiny activation. The fire that's been dormant in your bones for years suddenly roars to life. That calling you buried under decades of responsibility and disappointment, it resurrects with power you never imagined. Jeremiah 20:9 becomes your testimony. His word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. Day 9. Separation finalized. By the 16th of August, the process is complete. You'll look in the mirror and see someone you recognize but have never met. The person God always intended you to be, finally free from every limitation you accepted, every dream you surrendered, every truth you compromised. Each day, another part of you is being separated from the old timeline. You are being peeled like a sacred scroll, word by word, revelation by revelation, until the only thing left is the truth of who you were created to be. But here's what terrifies me about this process. Not everyone will make it through all 9 days. Some will get to day 3 and run back to their comfortable dysfunction. Others will reach day 6 and refuse to let their old self die. A few will get to day 8 and be too afraid to step into their destiny. The question burning in my spirit right now is this. Are you going to be one of the ones who walks away transformed, or one of the ones who turns back when the process gets uncomfortable? Because I need you to understand something that could save your spiritual life. This 9-day separation isn't optional. It's going to happen whether you cooperate or not. The only choice you have is whether you'll walk through it with awareness and alignment, or fight it and suffer unnecessarily. God is separating His chosen ones from the crowd, the compromise, and the comfort that's been killing your calling. But separation requires courage. It demands that you trust the process even when you can't see the purpose. If you're willing to walk all 9 days in alignment, if you're ready to let God peel away every false layer until only truth remains type, I will walk it through in the comments right now. Because what comes after these 9 days of separation will require someone who has been completely transformed. But will you be one of them? You thought the hard part was behind you, didn't you? You thought surviving July's chaos, making it through the fires of the past few months, enduring the sleepless nights and the silent battles, you thought that was your test. But dear chosen one, what if I told you that everything you've walked through was just preparation for what's about to unfold in these next 9 days? During these 9 days leading to the 7th of August, heaven holds up a mirror to the soul. Not the kind of mirror that reflects your physical appearance, but the mirror that shows you everything you've hidden, everything you've buried, everything you've convinced yourself you've moved past. And this mirror, beloved, doesn't lie. You see, most people think spiritual growth is about learning new things, memorizing more verses, attending more services. But the truth that will shake you to your core is this: God isn't testing your knowledge during these 9 days. He's testing your alignment. He's examining whether your heart truly matches your prayers, whether your private life aligns with your public declarations. In Jeremiah 17:10, the Lord declares, "I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind, to reward each person according to their conduct." Notice he doesn't say he searches your memory or your biblical knowledge. He searches your heart. And right now, in these sacred days, that divine searchlight is turned on full intensity. You will dream dreams you haven't had in years. You will remember names you thought you'd forgotten. You will feel things you buried so deep, you convinced yourself they were dead. That's not your subconscious playing tricks on you. That's heaven excavating your soul, bringing to the surface everything that still holds power over your destiny. That person you thought you forgave 5 years ago, their face will appear in your dreams. That betrayal you swore you let go of, the wound will throb again. That addiction you conquered, that habit you broke, that fear you overcame, they will knock on the door of your heart once more. Not to defeat you, but to reveal whether your victory was real or just well-managed suppression. Here's what's happening in the invisible realm. God is preparing to entrust you with something magnificent, but he cannot place new wine in old wineskins. Matthew 9:17 warns us, "Neither do people pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst." Your soul is being examined for cracks, for weak spots, for places where old resentments still leak poison into your spirit. Why do you think David wrote in Psalm 139:23-24, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." Because he understood that before God could use him mightily, every hidden thing had to be exposed. Every secret chamber of his heart had to be cleansed. But here's where most believers fail this test. They run from the mirror instead of looking into it. When the old pain resurfaces, they medicate it with busy schedules, social media distractions, or religious activities. When the unforgiveness bubbles up, they push it down with positive thinking and worship songs. When the fear they thought they conquered whispers in their ear at 3 a.m., they pretend they can't hear it. That's not faith, beloved. That's spiritual cowardice. The mirror God is holding up isn't meant to condemn you, it's meant to complete you. Every wound he exposes, he wants to heal permanently. Every chain he reveals, he wants to break forever. Every lie you've believed about yourself, he wants to replace with his truth. But you cannot be healed from what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot be delivered from what you won't admit still holds you captive. Think about the woman at the well in John chapter 4. When Jesus told her, "Go, call your husband and come back," he wasn't trying to embarrass her. He was holding up a mirror to her soul, exposing the very thing that kept her drawing water alone in the heat of the day, isolated from the other women, living in shame. And when she finally faced the truth, "I have no husband," that's when the miracle happened. That's when living water began to flow. Your the 7th of August encounter with the divine depends entirely on how honestly you look in this mirror during these 9 days. If you keep averting your eyes, if you keep making excuses, if you keep pretending that surface changes equal deep transformation, you'll miss the greatest spiritual breakthrough of your lifetime. Here's the shocking truth that most pastors won't tell you. God's love doesn't mean he overlooks your unhealed places. His love means he refuses to leave you trapped in them. When he brings that old hurt to the surface, when he allows that familiar temptation to resurface, when he permits that ancient fear to whisper your name again, he's not being cruel, he's being surgical. The great physician is performing heart surgery, and he needs you conscious and cooperative during the procedure. Every memory that surfaces, every emotion that stirs, every uncomfortable truth that demands acknowledgement, these are not setbacks. These are set-up points for your breakthrough. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul right now. This mirror only reflects clearly during these 9 days. After the 7th of August, the spiritual atmosphere shifts, and what could have been healed in this season of divine examination will have to wait for another appointed time. And chosen one, at your age, how many more appointed times do you think you have? The mirror doesn't lie, and this week, neither can you. The question that will determine your destiny is this: will you have the courage to look at what heaven is showing you, or will you spend these precious days looking everywhere else? Because what you do with this mirror of revelation will determine whether you enter the 7th of August as the same person you've always been, or emerge as the transformed vessel God has been preparing you to become. Dear chosen one, I need you to stop everything you're doing right now and listen to what I'm about to tell you. Because what's happening to you isn't random, it's not coincidence. It's not even spiritual warfare in the way most people understand it. You are being sifted. Jesus looked directly at Peter in Luke 22:31 and said something that should terrify and comfort you at the same time. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat. Not maybe, not someday. Satan has asked for permission to put you through the threshing floor, and God said yes. This is that week. Not next year, not someday when you feel more ready. The sifting has begun. Right now, as you're listening to my voice, there's a supernatural process happening in your life that most believers never recognize. You think you're going through a hard time. You think you're being attacked. You think God has forgotten about you. But what's really happening is far more profound and far more purposeful than you could ever imagine. You are being separated from the part of you that cannot go forward. Think about wheat for a moment. When farmers harvest wheat, they don't just cut it down and call it finished. They take that wheat to the threshing floor where it gets beaten, crushed, thrown into the air over and over again. The chaff, the worthless outer shell, gets blown away by the wind. But the wheat, the valuable grain, it falls to the ground, pure and ready to feed nations. That's you right now. You're on God's threshing floor. Every relationship that's been stripped away from you lately, that was chaff. Every comfortable habit that suddenly feels empty and meaningless, that was chaff. Every religious activity that used to make you feel spiritual but now leaves you cold, that was chaff. Every false identity you've been carrying around like armor, chaff. All of it, chaff. And it had to go. You see, beloved, the sifting process isn't cruel, it's merciful. Because God loves you too much to let you carry dead weight into your destiny. He loves you too much to let you stay comfortable in a version of yourself that was never meant to survive the coming season. But here's what's breaking my heart. Some of you are fighting the sifting. You're trying to hold on to the chaff because it's familiar. You're crying over relationships that God removed because they were poisoning your spirit. You're mourning habits that were keeping you small. You're grieving a version of yourself that was never the real you anyway. Stop fighting the process. The reason you've felt so alone lately, the reason you've felt like everyone around you is speaking a different language, the reason you can't seem to connect with people the way you used to, it's because you're being separated, not abandoned. Separated. Wheat and chaff cannot coexist once the sifting begins. They serve different purposes. Chaff looks impressive. It's bigger, louder, more noticeable than the grain. But when the wind blows, it's gone. Wheat is smaller, quieter, but it has substance, it has weight, it can feed multitudes. You've been living as chaff for too long, trying to impress people with your spiritual performance, your religious activities, your people-pleasing personality. But the 7th of August is coming like a divine windstorm, and everything that's not authentically you is about to be blown away. And that terrifies you, doesn't it? Because what if, when all the chaff is gone, there's nothing left? What if you've been performing so long you don't even know who you really are underneath all the masks? Listen to me carefully. God is not rejecting you, He's refining you. The same fire that destroys chaff purifies gold. The same wind that blows away worthless husks settles precious grain. The same process that feels like devastation to your flesh is resurrection to your spirit. Every morning you wake up feeling different, feeling disconnected from your old life, feeling like you don't fit anywhere anymore. That's not depression, that's transformation. That's the wheat in you recognizing that it no longer belongs mixed in with chaff. But here's the urgent truth you need to understand. This sifting process has a window. There's a limited time when God allows this separation to happen gently, gradually, with His mercy cushioning every blow. But if you resist, if you cling to what He's trying to remove, the process becomes more intense. Think about what's been happening in your life over the past few months. The sudden endings, the unexpected changes, the people who just disappeared, the dreams that died, the plans that crumbled. You thought it was spiritual attack, but what if it was spiritual preparation? What if God has been clearing the threshing floor of your life because He's about to do something so significant, so powerful, so transformative that the old you couldn't handle it? What if every loss was actually making room for unprecedented gain? The wheat that remains after sifting isn't just survivor grain, it's multiplying grain. One kernel of wheat can produce a stalk with dozens of new kernels, but only after it's been separated from everything that was holding it back. You are that remaining wheat, pure, valuable, ready to multiply. But there's something you need to know about the 7th of August that changes everything about how you should prepare for what's coming next. Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry these eternal truths with you into the 7th of August and beyond. Remember this, your isolation isn't abandonment, it's appointment. The sifting you've endured wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every piece of chaff that's been blown away from your life has made room for the wheat of your true calling to emerge. You are not broken, you are not forgotten. You are being refined by the Master's hand. The silence you've been feeling isn't God's absence, it's His presence working so deeply in your life that human ears cannot detect it. Like a master surgeon, operating with precision, He works in quiet concentration, removing what would harm you and strengthening what will heal you. And here's something I need you to understand with absolute certainty. You are not walking this path alone. Right now, as you listen to these words, there are thousands of others just like you, chosen ones, who felt the same stirring, the same separation, the same sacred loneliness. We are a community scattered across this nation, united not by geography but by calling. We see you. We understand your journey. We stand ready to pray with you, cry with you, and celebrate with you. When the world tells you to blend in, we remind you that you were born to stand out. When circumstances whisper that you're too old, too tired, too broken, we declare over your life that your greatest chapter is still being written. You belong here. Your story matters. Your pain has purpose. But let me ask you this question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. If God has brought you this far through every valley, every storm, every season that tried to break you, why would He abandon you now at the threshold of your breakthrough? Before you leave this sacred space, join me in prayer. Wherever you are right now, in your living room, your bedroom, your car, I want you to feel my hand on your shoulder as we approach the throne of grace together. Almighty God, Father of all comfort and Lord of all hope, I lift up every precious soul who has heard these words tonight. You see them, Lord, not just their struggles, but their strength. Not just their scars, but their spirit. Not just their tears, but their tremendous faith that has carried them through every storm. Father, I pray for supernatural peace to flood their hearts right now. Where there has been confusion, bring clarity. Where there has been fear, release your perfect love. Where there has been isolation, reveal your constant presence. Let them feel you in this very moment, closer than their next breath, more real than their circumstances, more faithful than their feelings. God, prepare them for the 7th of August. Make their hearts ready to receive what you want to pour out. Give them the courage to be alone with you, the wisdom to hear your voice above the noise, and the faith to step through whatever door you open. Bless their families, Lord. Heal their bodies. Restore their relationships. Provide for their needs. Open doors that no man can shut. Close doors that lead away from your will. Surround them with your favor like a shield. And Father, let them know, let them feel in the deepest part of their being that they are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond doubt, and called beyond their wildest dreams. May they sleep tonight in perfect peace, knowing that the same God who has carried them this far will never, ever let them fall. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share how this message has touched your heart. What is God speaking to you about the 7th of August? What chains is He breaking in your life? Don't hold back. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find hope again. If you're ready to embrace your calling as a chosen one, write, "I am chosen" in the comments. If you're committed to being alone with God on the 7th of August, write, "I will be still." And if this message has stirred something deep in your spirit, share it with someone who needs to remember they're not forgotten, they're called. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what heaven wanted to